America's going to elections on Tuesday. I wanted to say this, it's because I'm a rabbi. If America elects, and I because it's like shul, I never make endorsements on shul stuff. Well, I'll say is if America elects the wrong person, America's going to have real problems. But we who love Israel also, ironically, Israel is going to be okay. Because God did not make any promises to America. I love America. I love America. Very often I've played Lee Greenwood in our program and other American songs. But God did not make a promise to America. God made a promise to the Jewish people. It just so happens. And Christian Americans, Christian evangelists know this. That's why they are the number one supporters of Israel, not the Jews. For the Jews, you can forget about it. Charles Schumer and George Soros and the whole bunch of them, Ben and Jerry and Bernie Sanders. It's the Christians, because they know it. They know that America's future is tied with whether they bless and America blesses Israel. And I just want to say that because if someone is elected who is perceived to be the wrong one, it's not a day of mourning at all. Everything's going to be fine. Israel's going to be fine. We have good reason to focus on the bad. I often say when someone stops you in the street and says, "How are you feeling?" "Oh, my throat hurts. Oh, I've got a nose cold. Oh, I have a headache." No one stops and says, "How am I feeling?" Except for my nose. My pancreas is good. My liver is good. Both my kidneys are fine. My lungs, at least one of them is good. My heart is. No one focuses on the good. People focus on what's bad. And there's plenty in Israel that is worrisome, of course. But there's but there's another thing. About a year ago, Israel was living under the threat of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, for Qatar and 150,000 missiles and pinpoint precision rockets. And 80% of that has been wiped out, along with Hezbollah's leadership. Until a year ago, you had Mohammed Deif and what's his name? Ismail Haniya and Yahya Sinwar and a whole bunch of them. They're all gone. Whenever you clean the house, you know this, whether you're male or female, whenever you clean the house, the mess gets bigger before it gets cleaner. You have to start, "Oh, this doesn't belong here. Let's put it here for now. This is going to the garage. This is going upstairs. This is going downstairs. This is going to this room. This is going to be going to garbage. This is going to go to the haulers, to the junk. And in the meantime, let's put it," and you look at the house, it looks like there's been a tornado. And then soon enough, the house looks better than it did before. And that's what's happening now. They're cleaning things out. I have absolutely no doubt. I could be wrong, and I'm going to be on record on YouTube so we can see if I was wrong in a few. I have absolutely no doubt that before January 21, they're going to bomb the Iranian nuclear sites and possibly, very possibly, the Iranian energy and water set. Maybe not water, but energy and oil. I really believe it. And I don't have time now to go into what I think the strategy is, but it's very clear they took out all the capabilities of manufacturing new ballistic missiles, and they took out a substantial amount of ballistic missiles currently sitting, and they took out all these air defense units, the S-300 air defense units between Syria, Iraq, in Iran, guarding everything. And I believe that the purpose was to create an unobstructed path. And the question is, what are they waiting for? And I suspect in part they're waiting for the election, or alternatively, they're waiting for Iran to hit again on a theory that the next thing is going to be so overwhelming that they don't want to be blamed for having started a world war. So they'll be waiting for, rightly or wrongly, I think they're waiting for Iran's reaction to then justify saying, no, we've got to do this. And they're hoping one guy gets elected, and if the other one gets elected, they're going to do it. That's my prediction. I could be wrong. We'll look back January 21st. But I wanted just to emphasize this one last time, that if the wrong one is elected, Israel's going to be fine. And I want to say the other thing. If the right one is elected, don't think that's the Mashiach. Don't think for one moment that the Messiah just entered Washington, D.C., because everybody has their mishigas, and the two candidates have an extraordinary amount of mishigas. They're both unstable in different ways. One is completely unstable. The other one is susceptible to anyone around her. And so neither one is reliable. And even the best candidate, they have their own self-interests. America has its interests. Their obligation, their legitimate obligation is to be president of America, not Israel. They have to deal with Congress. They have to deal with So don't expect that the so-called good one is going to be a piece of cake either. No matter what happens, Israel will come out strong. Final footnote to that PS. It occurred to me, during the 8 years of Obama, Israel did not give up an inch of land. Everyone was sure, oh, Obama. I'm not making the case for Obama. But 8 years, when did Israel give up the Gaza? Under Ariel Sharon, 2005. That was President George W. Bush and his Rose Garden. He was a friend of Israel, much more than Obama, right? Israel, under pressure from America, gave up Gaza. When did Israel enter into the Oslo Accord? 1993. That was Clinton. When did Israel give up southern Lebanon and Ehud Barak? All that was pre-Obama. During the Obama years, the worst years, Israel gave up nothing. So the way God, in fact, not only that, Obama funded the building of the Iron Dome. Because of that left-wing position, we won't support Israel's right to attack anyone, but we'll support Israel's right to defend. So you never know what's going to happen. And the bad one, when you look back later, isn't necessarily worse than the good one who pressured us. I'm with you, I'm with you, I'm with you. The only thing is, I demand you give up the Gaza Strip. So we'll vote on Tuesday, but we have to understand God helps those who help themselves, but it's all in God's hands. The Yiddish term, a Mensch tracht und Gott lacht, people think and conceptualize and plan, and God laughs because God's plan is Rabbi Doe Fischer of Young Israel of Orange County. Everything you now hear is an official Young Israel of Orange County thing. And let's spend some time together. Thank you for being here. We have an extraordinarily wonderful.
It says, it's pronounced gyro. I think it's supposed to be pronounced gyro on the restaurant window, right? Not to mention the Greek flag is pretty distinctive. Doesn't have the huge Star of David on it. The whole thing is one big red flag. And just to make things even more bizarre, she posted this video herself. It's still up. The incident apparently happened in March, but for some reason she decided this is a good time for me to post it on my TikTok account. It's garnered millions of views over the last few days, but I'm not sure that is the way you want to gain a following. The restaurant owner actually called the police at the time. They couldn't track the person down, but hey, now they have evidence. So it has us asking, what was she thinking? Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your screen. And don't forget the time for our What Were They Thinking segment. You know, being anti-Israel typically means knowing a little something about it. Like if you're going to rip down an Israeli flag, you would think the informed protester would know what an Israeli flag looks like. But then again, maybe not. An enraged anti-Israel TikToker filmed herself ripping down what she thought were Israeli flags outside of a Gyro restaurant in New Jersey, outside of a Gyro restaurant. But of course, they were actually, you may have guessed it, Greek flags.
You know, I'm about to come back and put Free Palestine too. The Free Palestine. Look, what you looking at? You know damn well there's a genocide. You know there's a genocide. Now stop it. I'm taking it. I believe this one. Take this one down right here. What are they gonna do? They can't do nothing. I don't stand for it. I don't stand for it. I don't stand for this. There's genocide, and I don't stand for Zionism. I'm Montclair. I don't support it. There's a genocide. You know that, right? They're killing children. What's the purpose? Be proud of your heritage. Y'all understand there's a genocide, right? You understand, right? There's nothing against people who are Jewish, but this is not okay.
Freaky.
Who's this?
This is freaky.
What?
Really? Freaky.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was Israel. My bad.
It literally says, it's pronounced gyro. I think it's supposed to be pronounced gyro on the restaurant window, right? Not to mention the Greek flag is pretty distinctive. Doesn't have the huge Star of David on it. The whole thing is one big red flag.
Live at the university with more on the story. Lenny.
Good afternoon. Well, the organization, they have been in hot water with the university for quite some time, well before a very dangerous demonstration last semester. Tonight, they're taking their movement in a new direction.
If you're not leaving, I need your student IDs.
It was over before it began.
If we don't get your student IDs, then we will treat you as community members, and you will get no trespass orders from the police.
Just 1 week into the new school year, USF officials cracking down on Tampa-based students for a democratic society, grounding their protest outside the student center.
They're really not allowing any students to protest for Palestine today. And yeah, I mean, I don't see how that's even legal on their part, because free speech is allowed on university campuses. It's a public camp.
This is University of South Florida. This is Ron DeSantis.
The student organization expelled after organizing this protest on campus nearly 6 months ago at the end of the spring semester. This scene showing the heated clash between police and pro-Palestinian protesters, officers firing tear gas to disperse the crowd. At least 10 demonstrators were arrested.
We should be allowed to voice our support for Palestine and tell USF to disclose and divest from any companies funding Israel, any companies funding genocide.
This summer, the university expelled Tampa Bay SDS from campus. USF officials tell 8 on Your Side if it was another organization that had followed processes, they would have been allowed to hold their event. Tonight, students say they'll continue to find ways to make sure their voices are heard.
We just don't want students or community members to be discouraged. We want to keep our voices heard, and we want to keep pressure on USF.
And 2 students.
Why do you think she was wearing a mask? Why was she wearing a mask? To prevent herself from getting COVID in the middle of 2024 outdoors in Florida? Think she wears a mask when she's out on the street?
Were also expelled from USF following last semester's demonstration. The group not stopping now, though. They will be hosting another demonstration later this week. Reporting live from USF, Lenny Supal, 8 on Your Side.
Tonight, student protesters refusing to stand down as Brown University officials temporarily suspend the school's chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine.
This suspension is a clear move to debilitate one of the only organizations on campus that is actively making space for collective grief amidst the genocide in Gaza.
Suspension revokes the group's official recognition as a school organization, putting a hold on all campus-affiliated gatherings, including events, rallies, and meetings. University officials say it comes pending an external investigation into a, quote, threatening incident, end quote, that allegedly targeted members of the campus community at a recent rally protesting the school's decision not to divest from companies with ties with Israel.
In terms of the specifics of the allegations, we have no information from the university.
In a statement released by university officials earlier today, Brown administrators say, quote, the implementation of the interim measures is based on the severity of the alleged behavior and does not prejudge whether the organization violated policy, end quote. In a previous letter sent to the entire Brown campus community, administrators described student protesters crowding and yelling profanities at a bus full of Brown Corporation members, describing the incident as unacceptable and threatening behavior that violates student conduct. The letter went on to describe potential disciplinary action to those affiliated.
The differential rules and expectations, the Palestine exception, if you will, was strong.
They say
Notice how they don't want their faces shown on campus.
since their organizing began last year, students affiliated with the pro-Palestine movement have faced differential treatment when it comes to university discipline. Most recently, members of Jews for Ceasefire Now say they were cited for their overnight camping in a Gaza Solidarity sukkah.
Well, a confrontation at a coffee shop in Oakland over a customer's hat featuring the Star of David.
New at 6:30, our crime reporter Henry Lee is here now after talking to a man who says he was kicked out illegally. Henry?
Well, this man tells me he had his 5-year-old son with him and that the owner demanded he leave, but he says he didn't because he wanted to show his son that it's important to stick up for your beliefs.
You're being asked to leave because of obstruction. I'm being asked to leave. This is a private business. You're being asked to leave.
This is cell phone video taken by Jonathan Hirsch at the Jerusalem Coffee House in North Oakland on Saturday afternoon. It shows the cafe owner demanding that Hirsch leave. The reason, according to Hirsch, the hat he's
Notice that the cafe owner's sweatshirt is Arabic, has Arabic on.
wearing, showing the Star of David, a symbol of Judaism.
This gentleman asked me to leave because of my hat. You're being this is a violent hat and you need to leave. My hat? Yeah, it's violent. It's violent.
I'm sorry. I wear this hat all the time. I've been wearing, I mean, I've had this hat for years and it means a lot to me, but it's meant a lot more in the last year.
The dispute gets more heated.
Are you a Zionist? You said, are you a Zionist? I don't have to identify myself. Then get out.
Hirsch tells the owner he's welcome to call the police.
We still come and they'll educate him that what he's doing is wrong and that he is ignorant.
Hirsch tells KTVU he and his 5-year-old son ended up at the cafe because his son needed to go to the bathroom and his wife wanted a coffee.
I wasn't going out looking for a fight, but when someone comes up to me fighting, I can't teach my son that like Jews are these meek people that run and cower.
Oakland police arrive, but the argument continues and the owner taunts Hirsch and curses him in the officer's presence.
I love Jewish people. Why are you saying that? Go outside.
The officers tell Hirsch to go outside and say if he returns, he could be arrested for trespassing. The owner declined an on-camera interview, telling me talking to the media is like talking to the police.
This is one of the most clear-cut cases of anti-Jewish discrimination that I have seen in the Bay Area.
Jeremy Russell of the Jewish Community Relations Council says this isn't the first time the cafe has raised eyebrows. Earlier this month, it introduced a new menu, including a drink called Iced Intifada, named after Intifada, or Palestinian uprising.
But to deny somebody service in a place of public accommodation on the basis of what he or sure looks like religion, national origin, and the like, is simply not allowed under state laws.
Hirsch says he may take legal action.
I'm interested in pursuing justice here, and if the city can't remedy this, then I'm willing to pursue whatever avenues I have.
Now, although Oakland police were there on scene on Saturday, the department is still investigating. It's not determined whether this was a hate crime. The cafe owner did say he was going to send me a statement, but I've yet to receive it. Live in the studio, Henry Lee, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Nearly $3 billion.
Not alone. You are not alone. You are not alone. You are not alone.
You know Greta Thunberg. She's become probably the biggest anti-Semite in Europe.
You are not alone. 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 Resistance is justified when people are occupied. 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 Resistance. Vi har retssupport. Lad os vide det, vi har retssupport.
Now the details here at 5:30. A week after a center city synagogue became the target of vandals and arson, leaders of all faiths are speaking out. They gathered today at Congregation BDS Israel to condemn anti-Semitism. Action News race and culture reporter Taronda Thomas is here in studio with us. And Taronda, this is still an active investigation.
Yes, it is, Shari. As police do their work, others are.
Congregation BDS Israel is the oldest congregation in the United States. It's not the oldest building anymore because they've moved 2 or 3 times. The oldest building synagogue in the United States now is the one in Rhode Island, Touro Synagogue in Newport, Rhode Island. And then you've got the synagogue in Manhattan, the Sephardic Synagogue xiii Israel, the oldest Sephardic congregation and the oldest Sephardic synagogue. The oldest congregation in America, going back to the 1700s or 1800s, 1700s in Philadelphia, is BDS Israel.
They're standing up to support the synagogue. It is the oldest synagogue in Philadelphia, now experiencing an age-old form of hate.
Mikveh Israel is a beacon of history and resilience.
A history that dates back more than 280 years.
We're the oldest Jewish congregation in the United States.
But that history is now marred by hate.
What happened here a few days ago was evil.
After repeated acts of anti-Semitic vandalism over the past few months, leaders from Congregation Mikveh Israel now stand with the support of other leaders.
We will not stand for hatred of any kind.
And lawmakers.
Incidents of anti-Semitism in the United States are at an all-time high, and it must stop.
Last week, vandals struck 2 days in a row at the synagogue in Center City, first vandalizing a monument, then setting a dumpster on fire. Both crimes caught on camera.
We have incidents against our places of worship across the city, whether it be a mosque, whether it be a synagogue, whether it be a church. We have a duty.
We stand firmly ready to further investigate these incidents and to prosecute them vigorously.
As the investigation continues, leaders of all faiths stand together to send a message.
Step forward and speak out against hate.
The show of support met with appreciation from the synagogue's rabbi.
Governor Shapiro himself reached out to me personally, about which I was deeply honored, and that level of support is something that you don't see happening every day.
It gives leaders of this historic synagogue hope that after standing for nearly 3 centuries, they can continue to stand, even in the face of hate.
God willing, we'll see justice being brought, and hopefully people will not repeat what they have done.
Now, investigators are still trying to determine if these vandalism incidents are connected. Meantime, Philadelphia police urge everyone to take another look at these videos, which we have posted on our website, and call them if you have any tips. John?
And hopefully they can help find those people. Taronda, thank you.
If you don't want to be called Nazis, stop doing it.
You've been called an anti-Semite more than anyone else at this table.
Yeah.
And people would sit there and, no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite. Okay. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians. I'm used to it.
Yeah, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that
you just say I should die.
You should not.
No, did you just say I should be killed? Be called Nazis. Stop doing.
You're called an anti-Semite more than anyone else at this table. Yeah. And people would sit there and, no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians. I'm used to it.
Yeah, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that
you just say I should die.
You should not.
No, did you just say I should be killed?
No, I did not say that. No, I did not say that.
Hold on. Did your guest just say I should be killed? On live TV.
I said I hope you.
Let me just stop.
You said you hope my beeper doesn't go off.
Because you said I'm a big supporter
of the Palestinians.
Hamas.
Guys.
Let me talk about the hardest issue here in Michigan is the Middle East.
Bill Clinton at a campaign rally for Kamala Harris just the other day in Michigan, talking to Arabs who will be voting.
And I have to be careful what I say because there's only one president at a time, and none of us can get ahead of where we're going. But I think we're going to have to essentially start again on the peace process. And I understand why young Palestinian and Arab Americans in Michigan think too many people have died. I get that. But if you lived in one of those kibbutzim in Israel, right next to Gaza, where the people there were the most pro-friendship with Palestine, most pro-two-state solution of any of the Israeli communities, were the ones right next to Gaza. And Hamas butchered them. And so then the people who criticize it are essentially saying, yeah, but look how many people you've killed in Ritalin. So how many is enough for you to kill to punish them for the terrible things they did? That all sounds nice until you realize, what would you do if it was your family and you hadn't done anything but support a homeland for the Palestinians, and one day they come for you and slaughter the people in your village? You would say, well, you'll have to forgive me, I'm not keeping score that way. It isn't how many we've had to kill. because Hamas makes sure that they're shielded by civilians. They'll force you to kill civilians if you want to defend yourself. And look, I worked on this hard. And the only time Yasser Arafat didn't tell me the truth was when he promised me he was going to accept the peace deal that we had worked out, which would have given the Palestinians a state on 96% of the West Bank and 4% of Israel, and they got to choose where the 4% of Israel was. So they would have the effect of the same land of all the West Bank. They would have a capital in East Jerusalem. They would have I can hardly talk about this. And they would have equal access all day, every day, to the security towers that Israel maintained all through the West Bank up to the Golden Heights. All this was offered, including, I will say it again, a capital in East Jerusalem and 2 of the 4 quadrants of the old city of Jerusalem, confirmed by the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and his cabinet. And they said no. And I think part of it is that Hamas did not care about a homeland for the Palestinians. They wanted to kill Israelis and make Israel uninhabitable. Well, I got news for them. They were there first. Before there was, their faith existed, they were there. In the time of King David, and the southernmost tribes had Judea and Samaria. But the whole fight that you have seen played out was present in the beginning for Israel. 2 parties, Likud and Labor. Likud says, we want the whole West Bank because we had it in the time of David, and to heck with whoever came later and other things. Labor said, we will take what the United Nations has offered us and we will make a garden in the desert. And we will have friends and we will work through it. And they did. David Ben-Gurion. They're still fighting this fight today. And so here's what I want to tell you. I'm going to do everything I can to convince people that they cannot murder their way out of this, neither side. You can't kill their way out of this. And they have to make a new beginning.
Where should the Palestinians go? Well, they should be going through the Rafah Gate and Egypt take them. But I've always said that, what you should have is they should go to pro-Hamas countries. Qatar, Iran, if you send them there, Turkey, those are pro-Hamas countries. That's where they should go.
But they're on the run for their lives, taking whatever they can, their kids in tow. They're not able to get into Egypt. How are you supposed to even make it to Qatar at this point?
Isn't that telling that Egypt won't take them? Why won't Egypt take them? Because they don't trust which ones are terrorists and which ones aren't. It's a sad state of affairs. But the reality of that evil is very clear in Arab countries, too. Arab countries have very much always been cautious and know the threats that Iran can place. They don't want those terrorist proxies coming after them. Saudi Arabia felt the Houthis in that fight for Yemen. Egypt knows exactly what they can do. But instead of the world hitting on Israel, who was brought to her knees in the worst invasion since the Holocaust, why isn't everybody talking to Egypt? Why aren't they talking to Turkey? Why aren't they talking to Qatar? Why aren't they talking to Iran? Why aren't they doing something to help the Palestinians? If that's the case, why is it you come back to Israel and the U.S.? It's always the case. Everybody loves to help Israel when she's hit. But all of a sudden, they're quick to beat up on Israel when she hits back. If that had happened to America, do you not think we would have hit back? But where are the friends of those pro-Hamas people? Where are the friends of Gaza? They should be the ones doing what they need to save them. It shouldn't be on Israel, who watched their people get butchered on October 7th.
The Knesset is different from the House of Congress. And there's a lot of screaming and yelling all the time back and forth. In fact, this is the Aretz 99, Channel 99, the Knesset channel. To have a channel that just is pointed on the Knesset, sort of like C-SPAN, and it just shows Knesset all day, whatever comes up. Here you have a guy arguing with, I'm not sure, he might be from Lieberman's party, I'm not sure. And he's arguing, the speaker is from one of the Arab parties. And the speaker is telling him that, well, let's take a look again. I'll give you the transcript. This is Odeh. Odeh is one of the Arab party main leaders. He's saying, you don't belong here. You came from Russia. Don't think you have more right than I have to be here. And Oded Ferrer is responding, our soldiers who were killed today. They will rule, they will be sovereign over you, and they will kill then and others like you. People like you who support terrorists. And you get a salary yet as a Knesset member from the state of Israel as a terror supporter. And the Arab responds, we're here despite you. Despite Hamatchem, despite, I guess, your heat, your anger. We're standing with pride. You will not have more right in this country than I have. And he's responding, your sons, they won't have anything. Oh, the Arab was saying, your sons will not have anything. And the Israeli Jew is saying, who in the world are you? Get out of here. Oh, you should be ashamed of yourself. Oh, get out of here. Now it's this guy's turn to speak from the podium, and the Arab guy is walking out, and he's saying of that guy who's now running out of the room, he's running out of the room because the facts are not with him. So let him get out of the room. And go ahead and let's quote from the Quran, all the verses in the Quran. Let's go ahead and let him quote to me all the verses in the Quran about the importance and centrality of Jerusalem to Islam. This city, Jerusalem, is not cited in the Quran even one time. He has no right to it. He will never have any right to it. The idea that he, as a racist, is telling me where I should go. The fact of the matter is, I'm not from Russia. I was born here. My father was born here. My grandfather was born here. And the grandfather of my grandfather was born here. Is buried in Mount of Olives. Long before that Arab Knesset member even heard of the Mount of Olives. This was a big story in the last day and a half in Israel. Israel picked up, the Israeli Navy doesn't get as much credit. You know, it's always part of the prayer for Israel. Whenever you've watched and heard the singing of the prayer for Israel, and they have the clips of on the land and the air and the sea. But people talk about the Israeli army, the Israeli Air Force, and the Navy doesn't get all that much glamour. Actually, the Navy does extraordinarily important work because Israel's on the Mediterranean Sea. It's exposed, its entire west. If it's exposed on the east to the there are no Palestinians, to the Arab entity in Judea and Samaria, and if it's exposed to Hezbollah in the north and to Hamas in the south, it's exposed to the Mediterranean. And the Arabs try to come in that way, and the Israeli Navy protects. Part of the importance of protecting in the Mediterranean, northern Mediterranean, at the border with Lebanon, is two things. Number one, Iran smuggles weapons, hard missiles and rockets and the really deadly weapons into Lebanon through certain land routes through Syria and through the Mediterranean Sea. And it's the Israeli Navy that's there to protect. Secondly, Israel had an extraordinary God miracle discovery several years ago of natural gas all the way up the Mediterranean, that as soon as it all gets developed and is all active and pumping around, it's going to make Israel for her own self pretty much energy independent, and already has substantially done so. And in a very controversial manner, Yair Lapid, the fool who was prime minister for 2 months as the Israeli government was falling, the prior Israeli government under Naftali Bennett, there had been a power sharing agreement that Bennett would have 2 years, then Lapid would have 2 years, unless the government fell. In which case, if the government fell, Bennett would step down and Lapid would become prime minister for the 2 months between the fall of the government and the new elections. And during those 2 months, the fool gave up a substantial amount of natural gas reserves to Hezbollah in return for peace. And no sooner did they get the gas than, you know, what's been going on with Hezbollah. So Israel, over the weekend, the Israeli Navy got off in Lebanon. They went to the coast of Lebanon. 5 of them got off the boats, and they knew exactly where they were going. And they essentially grabbed the head of the Navy, the head of the Navy operation, and they brought him back to Israel for intelligence gathering. And that's what happened this weekend. Amazing. They knew exactly where they were going, and they went.
אתמול לפנות בוקר ממצלמות האבטחה בעיירת החוף התיירותית אל-בטרון, צפונית.
Yesterday, right before morning, in El Batroun, which is a tourist area in northern Beirut,
לביירות. כוח ישראלי מיוחד שהגיע מהים שובל.
A special Israeli force that entered by sea came into Lebanon
לבנוני במסגרת פעילות קומנדו יוצא דופן בלב.
in a commando operation that was extraordinary in the heart of Lebanon.
לבנון.
هنالك ترجيحات كبيرة بأن هذه القوى.
This is Arab news, obviously, and they're reporting that an Israeli force came in through
التي قامت بعملية الإنزال البحري فجر يوم الجمعة هي قوة إسرائيلية.
An Israeli force on Friday morning.
היעד של הפעולה החריגה הזאת, לפי הדיווחים, הוא עימאד פאדל עמאד.
This guy, Imad Fadel Ahmad, was the target of the special raid.
אז בתחילה ניתן כי מדובר בקצין בחיל הים הלבנוני.
At first it was reported he's an officer in the Lebanese Navy. But then it came out that he's a lot more than that.
המשך התברר כי מדובר בחובל אזרחי, שלפי אתר החדשות האמריקני אקסיוס, שימש בכיר בכוח הימי של חיזבאללה.
According to Axios, the news agency, it turns out he's much, much bigger. He's a major guy in the Lebanese Navy, in the Hezbollah or Lebanese Navy, Hezbollah Navy.
بالبداية كان في نقاش انه هل في احتمال انه هذا بيشتغل مع الاسرائيلي اجت هذه القوة، بس واضح من العملية كلياتها من القوة البحرية اللي فايت انه عملية اختطاف، وهذا الضابط هو يعمل او مرتبط بحزب الله، وبناء على هذا صار اختطافه.
The guy is saying that at first it was reported he might have been an inside spy for Israel. People wondered, but now based on what happened, it's clear he was working with Hezbollah.
בישראל אישרו שבפשיטה הלילה בצפון לבנון השתתפו לוחמי שייטת 13 וחוקרים של יחידת 504 באמן. בצד השני של הגבול, האירוע הפך לשיחת היום.
In Lebanon, this became the talk of the day. At 2:30, quarter to 3 in the morning, we heard loud banging on the door. Someone from outside.
كذا حدا توجه لبرا، أنا بعد ما وصلت على الباب لأفتح سمعت صوت عم ينقال.
When I opened the door, I heard someone say, "Go inside, go inside. These are the security forces."
فوتوا لجوا أمن دولة.
صوت بالعربي عم يحكي معك.
And the reporter says, "What? They were talking in Arabic?" And the guy responds, "Yes, perfect Arabic, just the way you and I speak."
مثلك.
مش مكسر يعني.
لا مش مكسر.
And she asks, not broken Arabic? And he says, no, not broken.
השלטונות בלבנון פתחו בחקירה ומדגישים כי מדובר באזרח ולא באיש צבא. בחיזבאללה שומרים על עמימות ולא התייחסו לזהות השבוי. אך כן הודו
Hezbollah is not confirming that the guy they picked up is an Hezbollah big guy. And Israel's official line is we picked up a civilian from Lebanon. But it's known that this guy is much bigger than that.
היה אירוע כזה.
التفسير الوحيد قبل ما يطلع كل البيانات الرسمية انه نحن بلد هالقد مكشوف، هالقد محصن، وهالقد العدو ناوي علينا نوايا.
Anyway, you get the idea and we'll move forward for time reasons. But this is a major operation. And again, the power of the Navy and is that they represent a threat, allowing Iranian shipments through of arms, and they represent a threat to the gas fields. And by neutralizing the Hezbollah Navy, together with everything else, you're continuing to see Hezbollah cornered more and more.
Tonight, Israel has moved to ban a UN relief agency from operating there. Raf Sanchez is in Tel Aviv. Raf, what could this mean?
Lester, Israel's parliament tonight pushing ahead with new legislation that could threaten the UN's ability to deliver aid to Gaza. The move coming despite U.S. opposition and amid growing tensions with Iran. Tonight, Iran's leadership vowing to respond after Israel launched waves of airstrikes against military targets in retaliation for Iran's ballistic missile attack earlier this month. The Iranian regime initially downplaying the bombing, the first time Israel has openly struck its Mideast enemy. But with 4 of its soldiers killed, Iran saying today it will use all available tools to deliver a response. Israel already on edge after a suspected terror attack near Tel Aviv. This truck ramming a bus stop, killing an elderly man and wounding more than 30 people. You can see from the destruction to the cab of the truck just the force that it came crashing in with. While in northern Gaza, deepening despair. Israeli forces raiding one of the only functioning hospitals in the area, saying they captured dozens of militants, but the raid leaving the hospital in chaos, including the neonatal unit. Hospital director Hassam Abu.
The question is, what are the terrorists doing, hiding and basing themselves in that hospital? That's the part that you don't get as much focus on.
Sophia leading prayers for those killed, among them his own 21-year-old son, a patient this doctor and father wanted so badly to save.
All they have to do is give up the Israeli hostages and stop bombing Israel, lay down their weapons and surrender and return to what it was before on October 6th. And just stop. Until they stop, it's like Clinton said, you don't count. What would you do if people did that to you? That's all. Here, Israel captured a Hezbollah battalion commander, and they actually are found on film surrendering. I'll jump ahead a little. Then there's another one. Then there's another one. A month since Israel entered its ground forces into Lebanon, this is what the towns now look like, the towns that had been threatening Israel from northern Israel. This is what they look like a month later.
חודש אחרי שצה"ל החל את המבצע הקרקעי בדרום לבנון, הערב ננסה להציג באמצעות תמונות לוויין איך צפוי להיראות מרחב הגבול החדש.
After Israel went into the Lebanese territory, our aerial cameras show the nature of the Sahal's destruction of hundreds of buildings in the Lebanese towns that served as bases for attacking.
אחרי שצה"ל הרס מאות מבנים בכפרים הלבנונים שמהם נשקף איום מיידי על יישובי הצפון.
היעד שלנו את הרצועה הזאת לנקות באופן שלם ומלא על מנת...
That's the defense minister of Israel, Yoav Gallant. He's saying our purpose all along has been we're going to clean out southern Lebanon in a complete manner, a full and complete manner, so that our citizens can go back to their homes in the north.
שאנשים יוכלו לחזור לכאן. ולבסס את החיים שלהם כמו שצריך.
So people can have normal lives the way they should. And this is a very substantial thing.
אני חושב שזה דבר מאוד משמעותי. אנחנו הולכים ומשלימים את המשימה.
We are proceeding and we are achieving our purpose.
הגבול שבין ישראל ללבנון מתפרס לאורך 80 קילומטרים.
This is the border of 80 kilometers. The border between Israel and Lebanon.
קרא בגזרה המערבית על קו הים ועד להרדוב בגזרה המזרחית סמוך למורדות החרמון. מול ראש הנקרא שלומי וחניתה נמצאת בצד הלבנוני
And the rest of this film that I'm going to skip for time reasons, he's going to show how here's a town or a city just south of the border in Israel, like Rosh HaNikra, and here is an Arab village just north of the border from which Hezbollah forever has been shooting rockets. So from this village, they've been shooting into Rosh HaNikra forever, and now the village has been pretty much cleared out, wiped out. And this video, again, I'm going to skip it to save a few minutes. He's going to go from one to another place and showing you what the Lebanese source of the attacks are and what it looks like now, just a little bit of it.
מורת לבונה, שבה בנה חיזבאללה בונקרים ומתחמי לחימה מעל האדמה ומתחתיה, סמוך לשמורת הטבע הזו ניצב הכפר אל-מאי-שעב. כך נראה הכפר לפני המלחמה וכך הוא נראה היום. ממדי ההרס ניכרים היטב.
הפגיעה בחיזבאללה היא פגיעה קשה מאוד, והפגיעה...
The damage we've done to Hezbollah is substantial, and we have substantially hurt the towns and their ability to organize to
על היישובים הישראלים ערב אל-עראמשה והאדמית. כך נראה הכפר לפני המלחמה וכך הוא נראה היום, הרוס לגמרי. מתוך הכפרים השיעים בדרום לבנון, מתוך אוכלוסייה אזרחית, נערך חיזבאללה לפשוט ליישובי הגליל. בשבועות האחרונים חשפו לוחמי צה"ל.
And along the way, Israel keeps finding weapons upon weapons upon weapons.
A Fox News alert. A new retaliatory threat from Iran less than a week after Israel's counterstrike against the regime. As the Ayatollah says, last Saturday's IDF strike, quote, too big to ignore. And they could deliver on that threat before Tuesday's U.S. elections. Iran sources adding, quote, the response of the Islamic Republic of Iran to the Zionist regime's aggression will be definitive and painful. Here to react is retired four-star general, Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute of the Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, 20 sites, 100 aircraft. Many people said limited. Israel held back to not get a retaliatory strike. You viewed that strike very in a devastating way, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, very much so. The military effects of that strike is beyond what's being reported because they have literally taken down most of the Russian air defense system, the so-called S-300 missile defense systems that the Russians gave them years ago. And that's what's really protecting their nuclear enterprise, their oil and gas industry, and other key strategic assets like the missile production factories that the Israelis did destroy at multiple sites. Those were ballistic missile factories, by the way. So yes, this air defense system destruction is really powerful because Iran is sitting there essentially naked. And they know full well that if they conduct another significant attack on Israel, their vulnerability is absolutely staggering for Israel to come and do a completely comprehensive attack, which would likely have economic impact on them, not just military impact. The nuclear targets I don't believe would be struck because they need U.S. help to do significant damage. So I think it remains to be seen what Iran's going to do. They're saying they're going to use Iraq to do this, but that won't change the scenario for Israel, whether the missiles come from Iraq or the missiles are launched out of Iran. They're being obviously executed by Iranian leaders, and Israel will hold them accountable. And Iran, as I said, is very vulnerable here. We'll see if this is bluster on the part of the Iranians, or are they really going to deliver another comprehensive attack? Remains to be seen.
It should be noted that the foreign minister was in Russia, and they're helping out Russia and Ukraine, and they will evidently have a handshake agreement on some type of missile defense deal, but that takes time to put in. Real quick, North Koreans, between 8,000 and 10,000, seem to have reported to the battlefield fighting for Russia. I'm seeing some reports that there's a lot of dead North.
Just very, very quick, the Israelis got their hands from a guy who was in Iran and filmed Iranian security sites and smuggled the film to Israel. All the stuff I'm showing is in the past week. On the one hand, the leaders are threatening, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But the videos show that they are far more damaged than they're projecting.
برای همه اینها تشریح شد و اینکه اگر بهتر کسی سعی نکنه اراده ملت ایران رو و اراده جمهوری اسلامی ایران رو برای دفاع از خودش.
So that's the public image, but behind the scenes.
خطای محاسباتی رژیم صهیونیستی باید به هم بخوره.
That's Khamenei. That's the guy who's the current leader of Iran. The word Bil Adi means exclusive. This is exclusive video for that they've got Channel 14's main newscast.
ברקע האיומים מאיראן אנחנו מביאים היום תיעודים בלעדיים שצילם עבורנו תושב טהרן. באומץ רב יש לומר, הוא הגיע לכמה מהבסיסים שהותקפו וצילם אותם מרחוק.
So he took video from a distance at great risk and has smuggled it over to Channel 14 in Israel. And again, for time reasons, we'll go on. So that strange voiceover is because they're actually, the guy who took the pictures video is actually talking to Channel 14, however he's talking, whether by phone or whatever, and they're masked. It's something Israeli news does. They mask the voice of someone who's giving inside information. You hear that often when there's some whistleblower in the government who's reporting about some financial crime within the government, and the guy's talking to the TV station, and they mask the voice that way.
Here they are, aren't they beautiful?
There's a reason for I'm showing you now. Some scenes from Everybody Loves Raymond. Just stick with me. Count on this leading to something.
Ray! I left you up here an hour ago. I showered, did my hair, got the kids up, got them dressed. Kids, go downstairs. Mommy's yelling. And you can't even do yourself?
What? I'm ready.
This actress's name is Patricia Heaton. She won several awards.
Everyone is waiting for you. Oh, look at this. Look, this goes on after
This is about Patricia Heaton.
the pants, Einstein. Here, do you read?
But since I never saw, rightly or wrongly, I never watched Everybody Loves Raymond, I didn't know who she is. So I was thinking maybe some of you don't either. And I wanted you to understand that she really was a something in the celebrity world.
Realize that it's a 3-hour drive to Pennsylvania. Amy is waiting for me. Robert is a nervous wreck. I mean, come on.
Hey. You might be a little too angry to do the zipper. What do you want me to do?
All right, just forget it, Ray, okay? I'm fine.
Jelly donut?
Yes.
What the hell would this guy hate you?
I don't know. Did you sleep with his wife or something?
Slept with his wife.
Turkey. I always wondered where the flavor came from. I know you have to be in the mood, but can't you just this once think like a man?
I am. I'm completely disregarding your feelings.
Let me wash my hands.
Yeah. Well, you know, honey, you got to use soap. Use the soap there and scrub really hard. You know, like you're doing a pot. Hey, do that pot.
I don't wash my hands enough. That's the problem.
Well, that might be the problem. Yeah, that's it. Just get the soap all over that. Hey.
Thank you. I was so upset about not winning that my hair turned blonde. And then, of course, I forgot. Okay, the 5 women nominated for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series are Jenna Elfman, Dharma and Grip. Patricia Heaton, Everybody Loves Raymond. James Kaczmarek, Malcolm in the Middle. Deborah Messing, Will and Grace. And Sarah Jessica Parker, Sex and the City. And the Emmy goes to Patricia Heaton, Everybody Loves Raymond.
This is Patricia Heaton's second consecutive Emmy nomination and her first win for her work on Everybody Loves Raymond.
For the lead actress in a comedy series, and the nominees are
Callista Flockhart, Ally McBeal.
My issues? What are my issues?
Look, lady.
Allie.
Jackson, first, you're kissing me.
I thought you were him.
Then you climbed into bed.
I thought you were her.
And your hands were all up on my private.
Well, because I thought it was the remote control.
Hold on, found the remote now, didn't you?
Yeah, it did feel like the remote control. Hard, plastic.
Oh, please, don't flatter yourself. Excuse me, too. You had your hand on his
Hard
remote.
plastic?
Men have it when they're sleeping.
Remotes?
No, erections. And it had nothing to do with her thin little hand.
Oh, well...
And I don't appreciate the implication that I am not a good wife and mother and not nurturing. I'm a damn fine nurturer. Now get out of bed!
Jane Kazmarek, Malcolm in the Middle.
It's the jury, sweetie. They're tiny bugs carrying...
And the Emmy goes to Patricia Heaton. Patricia Heaton wins her second Emmy for her portrayal of Deborah Barone in Everybody Loves Raymond. Patricia is the mother of 4 sons.
I didn't prepare.
Let me just ask you about, the latest of what's happening. You see, like, AOC coming out and saying Israel should not have done that attack on Hezbollah because of some of the innocents lost. What's your take when you hear stuff like that from politicians?
Well, I retweeted her and I said, where were you when Hezbollah killed 12 Druze children on a soccer field? Crickets. So that's what I have to say to her.
Have you decided who you're backing in the election coming up?
I haven't voted in the last couple elections, so I kind of not interested in politics.
What made you decide to come out and voice your support for Israel now? Anything in the news, current events that really inspired you?
No, I'm Catholic from Cleveland. My dad fought in World War II, and we grew up knowing, like, the Nazis were bad guys who killed 6 million Jews. There's nothing new about that. And when it started happening again, this time with terrorists, Islamic terrorists, it's the exact same thing to me. It's the exact same thing. So, I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. Also, Israel represents the only democratic country in the Middle East. They're the only one that's a beacon of light and freedom. And we're directly connected to that. We need them there. And we need to be strong. Hamas is not just about the Jews. It hates Western civilization. It hates freedom. It hates democracy. It's a very, very violent, hostile organization, and they've got to be eliminated.
Hollywood, how are they handling this issue in your mind? What's the take from you on just what you're seeing coming out of Hollywood?
Oh, certainly there's not enough if you factor in that they usually jump on every bandwagon that comes along. So I just don't understand the problem.
Now she is taking on a new fight by launching a nonprofit October 7 Coalition, a network of Christians standing in support of Jews and against anti-Semitism.
And Patricia Heaton joins us right now on the curvy couch here in New York City. Morning, Jane.
I love the curvy couch.
It's great. We love you.
We do.
So tell us about where we know what happened on October 7th. You have started this movement now, this new idea, this new organization because of inactivity.
Yes. My dad served in World War II. We grew up with shows like The Hiding Place about Corrie ten Boom and The Holocaust with Meryl Streep and James Woods. So we knew Nazis are bad. Not focusing on Jewish people is terrible. So when October 7th happened and I saw it happening all over again, this time with Hamas body cam footage proudly putting it on social media, I couldn't believe my eyes. And not only that, about 48 hours later, campuses exploded with pro-Hamas protests and making Israel the bad guy and making Jewish people the bad guy. I couldn't believe it, and I was outraged. And I looked around for everyone else who was going to be outraged, I assumed, because we all know this is terrible. And it was very silent. So my partner and I created the October 7th Coalition, or O7C, to help Christians activate to be as visibly and vocally supportive of Israel, the Jewish people, and fight anti-Semitism as the other side was, because those protests were very organized. Those posters had been printed and ready to go for a long time. This has been in the works for a while. And so we need to step up and be as vocal and visible as the other side.
My family were watching The Chosen, and in every scene when they're entering into their houses, they kiss the mezuzah. And tell us the significance of that and what your announcement is today.
So the mezuzah is this beautiful little container that has a prayer that honors God and blesses your household. And Jewish people put it on the door frame of their door as they were commanded to. And it's been a tradition.
That's what you're doing right there.
Thousands of years. Right? And there I am putting it on my door. October 7th Coalition is starting a campaign, My Zuzah, Your Zuzah. And it's kind of a Spartacus moment because Jewish students at college campuses have had a mezuzah on their door, and they've been ripped off, they've been vandalized, they've been found smashed. And I think we have to stand up for the Jewish people and for their right to exist, their right to be Jewish and practice their faith. So that's what we've been working on. We're launching today My Zuzah, Your Zuzah campaign. You can go to myzuzah.org/shop. And you can buy one, put it on your door, make a video of it, post it on your social media, say, My Zuzah, Your Zuzah. We can all stand up together.
So I'm curious, what's been the support like amongst your colleagues? Yeah. It seems like there's been, the popular view is just to think of the children that are in Gaza. And even us as support Israel, we think about the children there. But we realize that Hamas is using the children as human shields. Have your colleagues been supportive of this cause that you're having right now?
Nobody wants war.
Yeah.
Nobody wants kids to die. That's not the point. The point is Hamas has started all of this. Hamas is using their own people, adults and children, as shields. They are putting them in front as fodder. And so I think my community in Hollywood think more with their hearts. And when they hear that people are losing their lives, they get very upset, as we all are. But the solution to it is not for Israel to do a ceasefire. It's for Hamas to release the hostages, put down their arms. And Hamas is a terrorist organization. It's not a legitimate government. They need to be out of business.
Absolutely. So let me ask you about this. You mentioned a moment ago what we saw on America's campuses last spring. We're seeing it again. And, you know, when you were setting up what you're doing, you talked about, you know, in the old days, we knew who the bad guys were.
Yes.
How come so many young people are on the side of the bad guys?
The universities have been taking billions of dollars from Qatar and other places and putting professors in who are very anti-Israel. And students, you know, they're in the formative stage. They want their lives to have meaning. They want to be fighting for a great cause. And unfortunately, their minds have been twisted and propagandized to believe that being pro-Hamas is somehow helping people when they are throwing gay people off of buildings, they're suppressing women, they're marrying young girls off to old men. It's the worst philosophy you could run a country by.
We have watched you for decades. You're so funny. You're an actress. You're a mother to 4 boys.
Yep.
Your faith is extremely important to you. You recently moved to Nashville. Tell us about that experience and most compelling analysis.
Yesterday you said that you endorse Israel proactively defending itself by hitting Iran's nuclear sites, which is something that President Joe Biden does not endorse. Do you not feel like this could lead to a likelihood of an all-out conventional war between Iran and Israel? And do you not agree with Joe Biden and his assessment?
I think the idea of allowing a genocidal, theocratic, unstable dictatorship that is desperate to avoid being overthrown by its own people to develop nuclear weapons is about the most dangerous and irresponsible thing that the world could ever allow.
We saw this clip last week, and I introduced you to Pierre Poilievre, who is the opposition leader in Canada, and he's in a race right now to lead Canada. He's running against Justin Trudeau, and I'd never heard of him. And I told you last week that with Israel having such a relatively small number of world leaders who are profoundly pro-Israel, not just some talk, but profoundly pro-Israel. There are only two that come to mind. Javier Milei, the new guy in Argentina, who went to the Lubavitcher Rebbe's Ohel and then to the Kotel, and Geert Wilders, the head of Amsterdam, Holland, Netherlands. And this guy I showed you last week is currently 30 points ahead of Trudeau in the polling. So there's a very strong chance. So I wanted to introduce you. That's a guy I'm really rooting for. And I wanted to last week I gave you 10 minutes of a 30-minute speech. Today I'll give you a few more minutes, not the whole thing again because of time. But
there was ever a day when we needed a government to stand up for what was right, this would be that.
As you know, the way the parliament works in England, and therefore Canada is based on it, is they get the head of the government and the head of the opposition talk at each other. And when they say something, all the members of their party stand up and cheer. And then the other side, and sometimes they razz each other.
This government has sought to divide Canadians by saying one thing to one group and precisely the opposite to another group. And here in this House, remaining radio silent on condemning anti-Semitic chants and on supporting Israel's right to truly defend itself by retaliating against the terrorists and tyrants. Why won't she do the right?
And you'll notice again the different verb. Everyone talks about supporting Israel's right to defend itself. But it sounds good, but that means Israel has to get out of Gaza, and Israel has to get out of Lebanon, and Israel cannot hit back. It can only defend itself. He uses the word retaliate.
Thing and stand beside the Jewish people today.
Continent of Europe, which is literally a.
So last week we did 10 minutes, and this is where we left off. I'll do about 7-8 minutes, and maybe another week or two we'll finish the whole speech. It was speaking to a Jewish organization in Canada.
100 times bigger than Israel. The medical technologies, the softwares, the artificial intelligence that Israelis have invented. I mean, there's a little bit more in artificial intelligence in the Canadian government, but it's a different type.
That's what we did last week. That's where we left off last week.
I came home from that trip, though, determined to stand with my friends in Israel, and not long after that, I joined with B'nai B'rith and then the Canada-Israel Committee, now xiii, and we launched a full-scale campaign to criminalize Hezbollah, which up until that time was completely legal in Canada.
Obviously, Hezbollah was not operating terror in Canada, but it meant you could raise money openly, tax deductible, as a charity for Hezbollah.
And the Jewish people have stood with me in my journey through politics. Some of my best friends and greatest advisors, including our very own deputy leader, Melissa Landsman, now helps me lead the charge in Parliament for our shared values. Many times our focus is on domestic, cutting the taxes, building the homes, fixing the budget, stopping the crime. Sometimes it's international. But we know that over the last several months since October 7th, it has been necessary for us to turn our attention to the defense of our shared values, of our eternal values. But before we discuss what happened on October the 7th, we must discuss what the events were that led to it. We know that Israel had just completed, in the recent years, previously thought to be impossible diplomatic breakthroughs through the Abraham Accord. These accords saw Israelis join hands with Emiratis and Bahrainis and Sudan, the people of Sudan, to forge peace arrangements. And the widespread speculation was that Saudi Arabia was next. Could you imagine what a breakthrough for peace it would have been if the Jewish state had successfully concluded an accord for peace and recognition with the homeland of Mecca and Medina? This would have charted in a new era of peace and friendship among the Abrahamic peoples, all of the Abrahamic peoples. And it was this hope that most terrified the terrorists who carried out their attack on October 7th. And more importantly, the state sponsors who orchestrated it all out of Tehran. They worried that their mission to destroy the Jewish people and Israel would be mortally wounded. Their mission would be impossible if Muslims and Jews were able to unite together in peace. What's worse, what scared them even more, was the possibility that the Palestinians have a hopeful future, a vested interest in the days ahead of them that would distract them from this endless conflict with Israel. You see, the Palestinians have a tremendous opportunity to build a peaceful and prosperous future. I mean, we see the poverty and suffering in Gaza, and we think, what could people possibly have been hopeful about? Well, the answer is plenty. It is a well-situated piece of geography right next to the Mediterranean. Look at the countries in the Gulf, how much prosperity and opportunity that they have been able to build for their people. Not only that, effectively speaking, Hamas had total independence to run Gaza after the Israeli government unilaterally withdrew in a painful decision whereby the government of Israel literally arrested its own people and dragged them out of the Gaza Strip and back to the Israel proper, a deeply controversial decision that effectively meant Gaza was going to be governed by the government in that land. So when they say end the occupation, in Gaza, the only occupier was Iran. Iran was occupying Gaza through its intermediary, Hamas. Iran was remote controlling Hamas and ensuring that the Palestinian people would not be able to build a brighter future as long as Israel was next door living in peace and harmony. And it was fear that that discord would come to an end and that hope would take root that most terrified the regime in Iran. And so they orchestrated the attack. The Hamas leaders traveled to Tehran, they got funding and weapons from Tehran, and ultimately coordination. I'm sorry, but I refuse to believe that ragtag terrorists in Gaza were able to accumulate all of those weapons and all of that intelligence and coordination on their own. This was an outside job. Now, why is this important? It's important because it forms our policy as a country towards Tehran and its terror arm, the IRGC. The IRGC murdered 55 Canadian citizens and 30 permanent residents by firing an unprovoked missile at a civilian commercial aircraft, PS-752, over 3 years ago. Let's get this straight. This group operates legally on Canadian territory. It can recruit, coordinate, mobilize, fundraise legally on Canadian soil over 3 years after they murdered 55 of our citizens. What is our Prime Minister thinking? It's time to ban the IRGC. Common sense concern.
We'll continue next time. For time, we'll move on.
Those songs will still be sung. The Jewish people will go.
For being here today. I was able to cut out enough material so we would finish by 12:30. Be sure to go out and vote. We won't meet on Tuesday. We'll be resuming on Thursday, and then, of course, God willing, next Sunday on Standard Time, and then Tuesday and so on and so forth. I'm so grateful when everybody comes out like this and is part of this, and pass the word. Just pass the word, pass the good word, and have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.